There are all manner of pretenders to Yoruba leadership. But the people I see here encapsulate what we mean by Omoluabi in Yoruba land. Now, when I spoke with the convener, he just gave me a rough idea of what I was expected to speak on. So I wrote a short paper entitled The Yoruba Question, Retrogression and Progress in the Position of the Yoruba within the Nigerian state. It's a very short paper. So I have 4 minutes to speed over it, and then I'll make a few remarks. In these days of disillusionment, self-doubt, and despondency among many of our people, it is simply stating the obvious that we have to once again interrogate our circumstances within the socio-economic formation known as Nigeria, if only to reposition our people so that we can recover our lost glory and reinvent our leadership position in the scheme of things. While some of us continue to relish the past and insist that our leadership position is not threatened, the more discerning among us realize that failure to correctly appraise the situation could only be calamitous to the destiny of the Yoruba people. The truth of the matter is that the lives and destiny of 50 million souls cannot and should not be trampled upon by reprobates, renegades, revisionists, and impostors. The contemporary self-proclaimed spokesmen and supposed protectors of our people just have to cease and desist from their sanctimonious and opportunistic crusade and become truly slaves of the common cause. It is against this not altogether wholesome background that it is intended to approach this discourse. However, the point of departure will be a revisit to the past, more so as George Santayana had warned that those who fail to learn from the past are doomed to relive it. The consequence of this has been the lack of a consensus among the various elements posing as the real and true defenders of the cause of our people. The situation became accentuated during the National Conference of 2014, when the Yoruba agenda was hijacked by some self-proclaimed frontline protagonists of the Yoruba, and who now ascribe whatever gains traceable to the Yoruba agenda during the confab to their self-opinionated, self-seeking, and self-centered posturing at that assembly. Today, the Yoruba nationality is at a crossroads, splintered into internecine bickering, quarrelsome groups, lacking in cohesion and tenacity of purpose, and waiting to be consigned into the labyrinth of a dog-eat-dog existence to be taken advantage of by other groups bereft of the prowess and nuisance value of this historically invisible, vigorous, and prodigious ethnic group. The confab and the Yoruba agenda. It can be stated without any fear of contradiction that hardly did any other group prepare as hard for the national conference as the Yoruba did. Their working paper for the conference ran over 300 pages, and supporting papers in respect of different topics tackled at the confab were provided by the Yoruba Academy. I can see the president of the Academy, Professor Oyebode here, and their papers were circulated to members representing the Yoruba regularly through the auspices of Honorable Wale Oshun in order to assist deliberations at the confab. We had papers from the Yoruba Academy almost on a daily basis to guide and shape discussions at the confab. Admittedly, certain Yoruba elements who wish to lay claim to leadership of the Yoruba convened meetings and brainstorming sessions ostensibly in a bid to forge a common front during deliberations at the plenary sessions of the conference. But unbeknownst to others, they harbored their own agenda and had predetermined goals which they had intended to foist on other delegates. However, as fate will have it, some of us saw through their smoke screen and decided to keep them at an arm's length in order not to corrode or compromise the Yoruba interests and goals. Now, what were these goals and how were committed delegates able to strive to effectuate them? Broadly speaking, these objectives can be said to include, but not limited to, the following: true federalism, devolution of powers, fiscal federalism, state police, the right of federating units to join others as regional blocks, development of joint development plans among the regions, just like the footage you just saw from Don, parliamentary system as against the presidential system, unicameral legislature, power and the right of the federating units to develop at their own pace, separation of the office of the Minister of Justice from that of Attorney General, restructuring of composition and command of military formations, relocating Chapter 2 of the extant Constitution to Chapter 4, etc. Regrettably, the sitting arrangement adopted at the conference hampered effective coordination and lobbying with delegates from other geopolitical zones during the deliberations. Furthermore, the hidden agenda of certain elements from the so-called Southwest became dysfunctional and counterproductive. Admittedly, not all the aims and objectives stipulated in the Yoruba agenda were realized, but it is submitted that despite the infelicities of the delegates harboring private agendas, the Yoruba were not totally shortchanged and strove to dictate the pace and tempo of proceedings at the conference. Now, where do we go from here? The report of the conference has since occupied a central position in public discussions as well as the contest for political power in the country. Only yesterday, President Goodluck Jonathan announced that he was taking immediate action to put the proceedings and the recommendations into fruition. But I think the Yoruba people should press for the convening of a constituent assembly, because the conference we held in Abuja for nearly 5 months was not a constituent assembly. And this constituent assembly, because the Yorubas had always been asking for a sovereign national conference. Now the President of Nigeria was reluctantly compelled to hurriedly convene that assembly, and he stripped it of the connotation of sovereign because they were afraid of the shadow that they had. So what we should recommend is a constant assembly which will adopt a fundamental law embodying recommendations of the conference with a view to giving to Nigeria and Nigerians a new lease of life by adopting a brand new and autochthonous constitution. In other words, the task of recreating Nigeria should be considered a work in progress, deserving of the full cooperation of the Yoruba. Accordingly, the Yoruba agenda should be constantly kept in view in order for us not to be caught unawares or rendered irrelevant in the scheme of things. It is the opinion of this presenter that believing that Nigeria will break up, I think is not right. I don't think Nigeria will break up, and we should not be actively conversing or crusading for an Oduduwa Republic at the present point in time. I think it's not wise right now to emphasize that.